thank everyone for coming. And on behalf of Dean Justice, Lorraine Justice, our Dean, we welcome you to this important and exciting event. The College of Imaging, Arts and Sciences includes a diverse group of students and alumni with traditional and non-traditional career paths. Our graduates and alumni are charting the path for creativity and innovation in the art and design fields. The goal of this event is to offer career-related programming and an opportunity to meet professionals from the creative industry and get feedback on your portfolios and make valuable connections that may help your career. Face-to-face time is a wonderful thing. Large companies and small agencies are here from Boston, New York, Utah, California, Florida, and many other locations. We have 50 companies, over 100 representatives participating this year. Many of these professionals include our alumni, returning to campus to represent their companies or to share their experiences and advice. Nearly half of them are alumni, which is remarkable. We will kick off the day with a speaker, Michael Hess, and a panel on important career topics. The one topic Michael Hess will speak about is creativity and commerce, the battle and the balance. It's going to be very exciting. At 2 p.m., the industry day opens and the portfolio areas open. The industry day will go until 6 p.m., the portfolios will go until 4 p.m. The event is sponsored by the Office of Co-op and Career Services and the College of Imaging, Arts and Sciences. You always hear CIAS. We welcome your feedback and ideas, and that really helps us to shape next year's event. A special thank you should go to Gretchen Baruto and Shauna Newcomb, who really made this, they're the glue that made this event happen. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Michael Hess's talk today, Creativity and Commerce, the Battle and the Balance. Creative people typically have highly evolved or dominant right brains, where imagination, intuition, fantasy, and similar free and subjective thinking happens. Conversely, their left brains, where analysis, linear thinking, logic and objectives, reasoning happens. Often this takes a back seat. And being a righty can pose challenges because those very same traits that make someone wonderfully creative can clash with some of the needs and realities of the business world. In his keynote presentation, Michael Hess will talk about these challenges and how they can affect career progression, from job search to daily work life to climbing the ladder, or even taking the leap into entrepreneurship. As both a creative person and a business owner, he'll give real-world examples of creative, commercial, dynamic, as well as advice on how to navigate for success in your professional life. In a minute, I'll introduce him, and I'm very happy and delighted that we have him here to share with us today. He is the founder and CEO of Scuba Design. But I would like to tell you about him having over 20 years of experience in consumer product design, product sales and marketing, product development, entrepreneurship, and executive management. He also writes a twice-weekly column, Business with Class, for CBS News, and serves as both formal and informal advisor to other entrepreneurial areas and businesses, and he holds multiple patents with many pending. He has over a dozen product and brand trademarks. And when reviewing some of his titles for his recent articles, I was immediately pulled in and curious. Some of those titles are such: Is kindness a realistic customer service strategy? The 3 most painful words in web development. I was really curious to see those. I'll let you look that up. Great customer service starts with 7 letters. Think what word that could be. Empathy is the word. When you should pick up the phone and why. And this last one, I'm so interested to hear about the details. I'm breaking the law and loving it. In fact, I was most intrigued with his most recent article that just came out this week called The Joys of Slingshotting Unhappy Customers. I thought, what could that be about? In this article, he makes a case for being determined, persistent, and positive. He gives concrete examples on how to do what he calls, on how to take what he calls preemptively unhappy customers. I think we've encountered many people like that at times, and slingshotting them into some of the happiest and loyal, most loyal customers. Michael's clear and insightful views are a gift for us today, and we so appreciate him taking the time to speak with us. Please welcome Michael Hess, our keynote speaker.
Thank you very much, Carol, for the very kind introduction. Crap, that's a high bar that Carol just said. Very kind words, and I appreciate it. I also feel very privileged to be here, surrounded by such intense creativity, and I also, when I got here, took a look behind the secret curtain and saw the types of companies that are here, and it's pretty impressive. You guys have a lot of tremendous opportunities, so I really appreciate you letting me talk to you for a little while. In my life, I am surrounded by RIT creatives, literally right now, but also in my working life. The company I founded 12 years ago, Scuba Design, is a primarily creative company. We do product development, we make laptop bags and other carrying cases, not necessarily the most exciting stuff in the world, but it's fun to design. And every creative person I've ever hired since starting the company, whether it's product designer, graphic designer, whatever, every single one of them has been an RIT graduate. And in fact, as far as I can recall, every single one of them I hired directly out of school. So no work experience other than internships and things like that. And I'm very proud of that fact. I've never regretted it. The work is incredible. RIT is an extraordinary resource to this business community, and I'm very vocal about it with other business people with whom I network. So you should all be very proud of yourselves and very fortunate to be going to a school like this. In fact, two of our product designers, by coincidence, are here today in the Digital Den, is it? Doing a little dog and pony show, showing some of the products they've worked on, meeting students, answering questions. So I don't know what your schedules are going to be like with this whole event, but if time allows, I think Brian and Julie are there in the den until 4 o'clock. So if you get the chance to meet them and see some of the work they do, that would be great. It's not just my professional life where I'm surrounded by RIT talent, but in my personal life as well. My wife, who is somewhere in the audience, I won't use my little laser pointer and nail her with it, but I could. My wife has her master's degree in furniture design from the School of American Crafts. My sister-in-law has her master's degree, right, from the imaging school in photography, and I'm sure there are other friends and relations that I've forgotten from RIT, and I've certainly interacted with many more in my business career. It sometimes seems to me like I'm the only creative person I know who didn't go to RIT. So I hope, though, that at least for the purposes of the next hour, you'll make me an honorary tiger or something like that. Even though I didn't have the privilege of going to RIT, and in fact, I don't have a formal creative education at all. My degree is in Soviet studies, and I'm guessing that the Soviet Union was gone before most of you were born, so you can see how brilliant I was in my career choices. But I'm a self-made creative person. I've been working for more than 20 years in various creative fields through my family's previous business, through the company I started, doing kind of learning product design on my own because I had to, doing product development and branding and creative marketing and collateral work and things like that. So I consider myself entirely and intensely creative person to the core. And even outside work, my interests lean towards the creative. As you heard, I write an article for CBS News twice a week, and I love writing. I'm a stickler for good writing, so I believe I like showing how it's done. And I pretend to play guitar pretty well too. I don't actually play well, but I pretend I do. So I tend to gravitate towards creative pursuits as well. And I didn't say all of that to brag or boast about my accomplishments. I actually said it defensively in advance, if you will, because some of what I say and what you see up on the Jumbotron may at first rub you the wrong way today. It may come off as sounding cynical, which I'm famous for, or discouraging or negative or kind of too cold and too businesslike. But in reality, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's just me trying to offer you a different take on maybe what you've been used to up until now in your creative lives. And in fact, and when I say I'm going to take the liberty of representing the business community as a whole. The business community, am your biggest fan. I have a vested interest in your success in business because for most companies, success depends on quality work from creative people. So if you hear me saying things or see things on the slides that maybe you say like, oh, that's rude or whatever, it's really just me hoping to nudge you in a certain direction of thought that, again, maybe is a little bit different than what you're used to so far in your creative development. So my hope today is to talk a little bit about creativity, which most of you can all probably way out talent me, so I don't really need to talk to most of you about creativity. But talk to you a little bit about commerce, and then, as the title of the speech suggests, understanding the dynamic tension between the two, the battle, if you will, and then finding a balance that will help you to get the most out of your career and your future and make all the right moves, build a toolbox that you can use to build a successful career. So that being said, I'm going to start with a proven public speaker's gimmick that is supposed to engage the audience. So please allow me to engage you. It's making you raise your hand. I know you can do that a lot. By a show of hands, how many of you consider yourselves very creative people? Oh, such a setup. Obviously, I knew everybody was going to raise their hands. A gimme for me. And by the way, I did not plan this. This black shirt and remote control thing, I realized that like 5 minutes before I started. I totally did not plan that. I have another shirt I can change into, but far be it from me to compare myself to the great one. Okay, sticking with the show of hands, how many of you want, expect, or plan to pursue a career in your chosen creative field? Hey, I locked this one in. I'm 2 for 2. Of course, I knew you were all going to raise your hand. Keep your hands up for a second, please. Okay, this will end soon. Now, keep your hands up if you want or expect or intend to pursue a career in sales after you leave here. It worked. Awesome. I knew that was going to happen. I set the whole thing up. It's perfect. Well, all of you who put your hands down, which is 100% of you, which is awesome, because I thought maybe there'd be a couple who didn't. You're the ones I want to talk to. Because if you want to have the creative career of your dreams and you want to guide your own path, the first thing you need to understand is that we are all in sales every day. Like this guy. Not so much like this guy. But we are all in sales every day. We're selling ourselves, we're selling our ideas, we're selling arguments, we're selling our accomplishments. And although it may not seem like sales because you're not knocking on someone's door with a physical object, you're not, selling magazine subscriptions or light bulbs or Girl Scout cookies, so you're not handing over a tangible object and taking cash necessarily, but you are selling, and selling is commerce. It starts with when you leave here and go to get a job, what's the first thing you're selling? Yourselves. You're selling your resume, your portfolio, your talents and abilities. And that's a big sale. It's the biggest sale of your life. And what you hope to get paid for this commodity that you're selling is, number one, to get a job, and with that job, get a paycheck. And once you get into the working world, you're selling every day. You're working with work groups or working with people of different disciplines, and you're selling your ideas either laterally to people you work with or up the proverbial ladder to bosses. You're selling arguments and debates, and as you want to get promoted and move up the corporate ladder, you're selling your accomplishments. This is what I've done for the company. That's a sale in the most real way possible. This is selling, and this is commerce. So, unless you want to do art for art's sake and just to gratify yourselves, whether it's to be a starving artist or do it as a hobby, if you're not interested in making a living in your field, then this isn't for you. But I'm assuming it's pretty clear that most of you are here because you are. So if you intend to make a living in your field, then the very first thing that you have to understand and acknowledge is that you are in sales and you are a commercial person, whether it rubs your creative sensibilities the wrong way or not. In my working with creative people, and also, frankly, I see a lot of this in myself. A lot of this comes from my own recognition of my qualities and shortcomings and things like that. But in my extensive work with creative people, I've noticed that there's a lot of characteristics that make for really talented, great creative people who put out fantastic work, but at the same time can prove to be challenges to them on the commercial side in their careers and in their ability to navigate the commercial business world. And there's a whole lot of detailed subjects in this general notion that I'm talking about, but given that we only have a little bit of time, what I try to do is distill them into 3 broad concepts of characteristics of creative people, not necessarily everyone, because everyone's in a different discipline, has a different personality, but generally characteristics of creative people that make them do great work but often hurt them in their professional endeavors. So I call it commercial challenges of the creative mind, and I realized after I wrote that it sounds like that movie title, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I think it is. I've never seen the movie, it wasn't intentional, but once I wrote it, I thought, oh, that title rocks, so I'm going to stick with it. And the first commercial challenge of the creative mind is that we, and by the way, when I talk about creative people, I'm going to say we a lot, because that'll hopefully help protect me from your wrath if you get angry at me. And also because I like to think that I'm pretty creative. So the first challenge of the creative mind is that in one fashion or another, almost by definition, we creative people tend to be free-spirited and non-conforming. We don't like to follow some path that's been set out for us. We probably couldn't do what we do if we were like that. We tend to think in a non-linear fashion, right? Where, if you're anything like me, everything you see sparks some idea in your head. And if you're really anything like me, your head's a noisy place. Your imagination is always going in different directions, and you're constantly trying to rein that in. And you don't like being told what to do. I'm terrible at being told what to do, which is why I have to work for myself, because if I didn't, I'd be unemployed. I don't play well with others when I'm told what to do. And that's a characteristic of a lot of creative people. We just like to blaze our own trail. And a lot of times that manifests itself outwardly in our personal expression. There's no one here like that. This is an extreme stereotype intentionally, but it's a way of saying that, we are telling the world that we don't follow necessarily your set of rules, and this is very common in the business world. We express ourselves in a different way. We follow our own road. More typically, this possibly silly stereotype is more of an internalized thing. So the creative person is more likely to look like all of you, all of us. We hide like aliens inside normal bodies, and nobody knows that the creative person is inside there until some of this self-expression and free-spirited nonconformity rears its ugly head in the business environment. And where I see this having the most impact for you, this can affect you throughout your career, but one of the kind of recurring themes, to digress for a second, is that with all the things I talk about, the longer your creative career, the more points you get. The better work you do, the more credibility you establish. You start to earn points that allow you to be more and more and more yourself until you can become so eccentric that you're like out of this world, but you're incredibly successful, like many of the famous creative people you all know. But when you're starting out, as most of you are or will be, where this nonconformity has a big impact is in the very first step, which is that first commercial transaction of getting a job. Being a nonconformist or feeling like the rules don't apply to us sometimes, and I don't like that whole business thing, and I don't want to be formal about anything. I see that a lot in people's approach to me when they're looking for a job. We don't always have a lot of job openings. We're a very small company. There's 7 of us. So we're not, I wish we had 100 job openings, because I'd be here with a table hiring you all day, every day. But people write all the time just inquiring about jobs, whether we have one posted or not. And invariably, especially creative people, the introductions I get contain things like this. Hey, that's how they start. Or, what do you, letter U, guys do? Or just a blank email with C attached and a resume, a PDF attached, or a portfolio, a link to a portfolio. And then I swear to God, I get this all the time. I get it, closings that are written in text speak. I've gotten LOLs, I've gotten 20 exclamation points, I've gotten see you later with the number 8, all of it. And a lot of it is just that that's the world you live in. I get that. You know, I'm not that old. I understand that. My wife does that. And I get that. But when you're going into the professional world, this whole idea of being casual and not conforming to any preconceived notions or business conventions, it can come back to hurt you because you may not be corresponding with somebody who gets it. In fact, I would bet most of the time you're not. You may get lucky and be corresponding with someone practically your age who does this kind of stuff too, and they don't even care that that's how you introduce yourself. But you're more likely to be corresponding with an HR person, a business owner who may be a lot older and who isn't creative, who doesn't get it, who doesn't appreciate casual speak, who thinks that it doesn't speak highly of you as a professional. And where this is going to hurt you is this introduction is what gets somebody to want to read your resume, and the resume is what gets you the interview. If you don't get past this, you're done. This is the knock on the door when you're selling, when you're being commercial. So if this is your knock on the door, then you might not even get in the door to show how great your work is. And I can tell you from personal experience that there are many, many resumes that I haven't read that are probably great, and portfolios that I haven't looked at that are probably great because someone wrote to me and said, hey, and didn't take the time to find out who I was, or what do you guys do? Really? You didn't even just bother checking out our website to see what job you're applying for? And I'm telling you, all this stuff happens. So you've got to kind of rein in that independent spirit that makes you think that the rules don't apply sometimes, and just say, you know what, I got to play the game because I want to get my foot in the door, and then worry about casualing yourself down later as you get into the work environment. The second commercial challenge of the creative mind is that we creative people tend to be strong-willed and we tend to be fairly ego-driven. And that's a very positive thing. In fact, I would be concerned about any creative person that wasn't strong-willed and didn't have a decent amount of ego. Their work would probably be pretty mediocre. You've got to believe in what you're doing, and you've got to have pride in it, and pride often translates to ego. And so these are qualities that are critical when you have someone who's intensely talented and creative. But you probably can figure out some of the ways that this can hurt you in your professional life. So if the first challenge that we talked about was about getting your foot in the door, think about this challenge once you've gotten your foot in the door and you're in the working world. This strong will and strong ego, in my experience, typically manifests itself in two different ways. Once again, a stereotyped exaggeration. I'm sure none of you are like this angry dude, but it's for illustration's sake. So the first way that strong will and ego can come back to bite you in the working world is this is how it's done mentality. You've all had the truly extraordinary privilege and benefit of getting to focus for however many years you've been here or other schools you may have been to, getting to focus almost entirely on honing your creative skills to an incredible extent. There are not many places in the country or the world like this where you have access to the tools and the professionals, the instructors and professors, and the resources to take whatever talent, whatever discipline you're in, industrial design, crafts, whatever, and take it to the absolute ultimate level. So when you leave here, you know how it's done, technically speaking, whatever your discipline may be. And you go into the workplace with a pretty fixed, generally speaking, a pretty fixed and strong will and ego about, I've learned all this stuff, plus I have the innate talent that I came in with, so this is how it's done. The problem with that is it may not be how it's done where you're working. And there are times that you will need to accept the fact that some things that happen in the workplace may come off as a blow to your ego, but the needs of the business have to come first. And that, whenever I say that, that's usually what makes creative people squirm in their chair. It's like, you know, the hell they do, I'm putting out good work here and I know what's best. But it goes without saying, if we don't put the needs of the business first, there's no paycheck at the end of the week. There's no business, inevitably. So in the real world, when I see this happening, I've seen this over the years in my company, I see it in other people's companies. People want to do this incredible creative work, and then a boss comes in who may be clueless, may or may not be creatively minded, and looks at this beautiful, let's pretend it's graphic design, looks at this beautiful illustration and says, that's a gorgeous layout, great work. Now do me a favor, put this block of copy in the middle of it. And the artist is like, no, you know, dude, that's white space, man. I am not messing with that. Do not mess with my layout. This happens, and I go through these arguments with our creative people in product and in graphic design all the time. They're healthy arguments. But at the end of the day, that business person, in theory, has a reason for wanting you to do that. You can try and fight for it a little bit if you want, but he or she may know that there's either some legal reason for doing it, or through years of experience, they know that it converts more customers to have this certain kind of copy in the layout, or whatever it may be. There's something about the needs of the business that require you to say, well, you know, I'm going to have to do this. There's an expression, if any of you have heard it, it says, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Have any of you heard that expression? That's an important one to keep in mind. I'd almost say that should be one of the few things you leave here with if you don't listen to anything else I'm saying. What that means is, you can always strive for perfection, but you can get to a point where there's a diminishing return. You're just working on it and working on it and working on it, and it's going to be perfect. Every element of whatever it is, whether it's graphic design, interactive, whether you're doing woodwork, you're not going to stop until it's perfect. The problem with that in commerce is, at some point you got to do business. So the perfect can prevent you from actually executing, and business is all about executing. If it's the nicest layout in the world but doesn't actually get out there into an advertisement or a brochure or a website, it's a pointless exercise in making it perfect. So what that means is you have to be willing to compromise. It's another dirty word in the creative world, because a lot of creative people hear the word compromise and they think that means sell out or settle for something less than their best. But that's not at all what it means. Business is all about compromise. There's no way that you can do business without compromising. Sellers have to compromise with customers to reach an agreement on making a purchase. People within an organization have to make compromises with each other in order for work to move forward. Not everybody is going to get their way. So when it comes to this whole concept of you know how it's done, you do. So rest assured, everybody knows you know how it's done. But be willing to choose your battles. There are times when you should just not give up because you really believe in it, and be able to make a business argument. That's a big part of it. Say why you think this is okay and why it'll work for the company. And there's other times when you just gotta pull in the reins on your ego and just say, that's fine, boss, I'll put it in there, and you just shake it off and let it go. At the end of the day, you're there to help make the business work, help the business grow so that you can grow in your career. The second way that this characteristic manifests itself is that this is not what I do mentality. And again, coming back to the idea that you've been training all this time in your specific field and you haven't had to pay a lot of attention to doing other things besides your craft or your discipline. So a lot of people go into the working world thinking, again, this sort of micro view, this laser focus of this is what I do. I'm a graphic designer, or I'm a metal worker, or I'm an interactive, a new media designer, all the different disciplines that are represented here. And that is when we did the hand-raising exercise and 100% of you said you want a career in your fields, that's what you're thinking, that's what you're going to be doing, is whatever it is you learned here and your talent and everything that you honed here is what you're going to be doing in the working world. Well, unfortunately, that's not always the reality of the working world, especially in small companies like mine. And there are a lot more small companies than big ones. You, of course, you're best served doing what you do best, but you also, it's to your benefit to build value, and this is also a central theme of a lot of what I'm talking about, building your own personal value as an employee, not just a creative person. So a good example of that would be if your boss comes into your office and gives you one of these, not a fake one like this one, but a real one. odds are you all know how to use it. Some of you are right now. And if the boss said, hey, can you spend the day doing something on this, most of you would probably enjoy it. Is that fair to say? Everybody enjoys using this particular tool. Well, what happens if that boss comes in the next day with this creative tool? Does anybody know what this is? It's less interactive. It's a tape gun. And it's not meant to be literal. It's meant to represent the parts of a job that you may not want to do. In my company, especially we started out with one person, me, and then 2 people and 3 people, everyone has to be what they call in sports a utility player and be ready to play any position and do it happily and willingly for the greater good of the team. So a lot of your employers, again, this just representing something outside your discipline, not necessarily taping boxes, although that does happen in my company. We all sometimes have to tape boxes or clean bathrooms. What most employers are going to want to know is not that you necessarily are going to do it, but that you would. Does that make sense? So you're not so fixated on it. If I were to walk in with that tape gun and you make a face at me, like, seriously? You think I'm going to get out from behind my computer and go tape a box? You know, that's not what I went to school for. It's not what I trained for. I do this. So build value by showing that you're a team player, that you're flexible. This is part of the commercial process. You take a longer view and say, I'm going to compromise and sacrifice some of these notions that I have about my creative career so that I can become more important to the company I'm working for and also build a broader skill set for future career moves or even going into business for yourself, which we'll talk about. Excuse me. Give you one example of this in action from my company. Make sure I stay on schedule because I can go long. In my company, again, there's 7 of us, of which most of us are in creative pursuits, product design or graphic design. And one of our product designers, who's over here today, Julie, when I read her resume, I noticed a little note at the bottom saying that one of her personal interests was sewing. And I said, oh, that's cool. You know, we make bags. It doesn't hurt to know about sewing. But I never really thought much about it in terms of her actually sewing something. I didn't think she was going to start making laptop bags in her office. So I just said it's a bonus. It's nice that she knows how things that are sewn go together. And it turns out that wound up paying off and making her much more valuable to our company because she realized one day that when we get bags returned to us for repair, warranty, it doesn't happen often because we make great stuff, but things need fixing. And she came in one day and said, hey, you guys are just replacing bags and, you know, throwing bags into the environment. She's very much into that. She said, you know, you're throwing out bags or taking them apart or whatever. I can fix those. Get me a sewing machine. So we bought, to make a long story short, we bought an industrial sewing machine and some supplies and all the stuff she needed. And now once in a while when the bag comes in, she stops what she's doing. She goes back, you know, in a cold warehouse where a lot of you don't want to be. And she sits at her sewing machine. In 5 minutes, she fixes a bag. And she has saved us money. She's made a customer happy because we've given them their bag is like new. And sometimes they're even happier if we fix it than replace it because then we've paid the attention. We've paid that attention to their bag that they love. And she puts a little tag on it saying that it was lovingly repaired by Nurse Julie in the bag hospital. So there's a case where she stepped up as a utility player and said, I can do more than what you hired me for. And now she's immensely more valuable to me because what are the odds that I'm going to hire my next industrial designer and have them be able to do that? You? Okay, give me your information later. That's great. And there are many other examples of that having happened in my working life. So think about being willing to work outside of your box and not having the this is not what I do mentality. The third is business and experience. This one no one can be blamed for. Most of you have not yet been out in the working world, or if you have, maybe you've had an internship, maybe you've had a little bit of experience, maybe you've got a family business that you've worked in, but for the most part, you're not expected to come out of here with a whole lot of business experience. But it is incumbent on you and very beneficial to you as you climb the proverbial corporate ladder that you seek out and gain business experience and knowledge in every way you can, even if you find it absolutely boring. And I'm not saying that you should go read accounting books and understand all the nuances of finance and every line in a balance sheet or any of that, but understand the basics of sales and gross margin and expenses and things like that, because what you do has a direct impact on those things, and those things have a direct impact on you. And you will be in a better position to understand what your employer is asking of you if you have some basic commercial framework within which you operate. Because if you're in this vacuum of creativity and you don't understand the bigger picture, when your employer comes and says, well, I really like what you've done, but we can't do it, your first reaction is, why not? This is great work. Of course we can do it. Well, you don't know. Maybe the company can't afford it. Maybe there's tools that are needed that are not within the company's means. Or maybe the company has experienced this before and knows that they can't make money doing that. So understanding the basic model of a business and how it makes money and how that affects different decisions about what is done creatively and in other areas of the business benefits you. Similarly, we talked in the beginning about sales and how every day of your life you're doing some kind of selling and commerce. It's important to learn literal sales too, because you never know where you're going to wind up in your life, whether you're going to stay in your chosen career. Most people don't. They go through several different variations of their career or entirely different careers. So it's good for you to understand how to literally sell a product, whether you wind up pitching a client if you go work for an agency, or whether you're selling a physical product, if you're a crafts person or a web developer, you're selling a physical product. It's good to learn the skills and arts of negotiating and closing a deal and understanding the mentality of the customer and the seller. And my example here is going to get me locked out of the house tonight, but it's my favorite example. There's a saying in business that says, in any negotiation, the first person who speaks loses. And what that means, it's a generalization, but what it basically means is, if you're going back and forth trying to sell something and buy something, pretend it's an auction, you raise your hand too soon, you may pay too much. So generally speaking, the first person who talks is at a deficit in the negotiation because you may actually underbid yourself, you may pay too much for something. So one of the best strategies in sales is to listen more than you talk. And it's good to learn some of these skills because eventually, again, let's say you're pitching a client for a creative agency that you work for, you may not want to go on too much about the work until you get the client's reaction and see if they're leaning towards buying. And then you can adapt your sales pitch accordingly. So my example that's going to get me in trouble with my School of American Crafts master's degree wife sitting back there giving me the evil eye right now is this. When I started dating Jennifer, my wife, she was a graduate student here in the School of American Crafts, and early in our dating life, she had one of her first student showings at the Village Gate. And how many of you are in crafts here? Any of you? A couple. So you all know the routine, right? You put out some of your work. Some of it is assigned work you did in class. Some of it may be work you did on your own. You want to get some attention in the art world, hopefully sell a piece or two. So this was a project that Jennifer had done in class, and just to give you some scale, that's a dressing screen. It's about 7 feet tall, so it's not, it looks squat in that picture, but it's about this tall and it folds in half. And it's hand carved out of cherry, and if any of you are in the woodworking program, I don't need to tell you how much time was involved in making this, and all the pigmented paints and all of that stuff. So Jennifer had this on display at her showing. And I was with her, we kind of just known each other for a few weeks. She had a couple of glasses or plastic cups of wine in her already. She was red-cheeked, she was very nervous, she hates business. She wanted to make a business of woodworking, but didn't want to have anything to do with the business side, production, selling, profit, bookkeeping, any of it. So she just wanted people to buy her stuff and have it happen magically. And she had the little foam core tile that says your name, the name of the piece, your inspiration, and your vision for making it, and then sometimes has a price on it. So she had the foam core tile and said $1,000. If you've ever done work like this, it's worth way more than that, just in time alone, but you're a student and you got to start somewhere, so $1,000 was kind of the going rate. And we're standing there, and this guy starts walking towards us, and Jennifer starts getting really nervous. She said, oh my God, that guy is the biggest art collector in town. And at the time, I was not so in tune with the crafts community, so I didn't know who he was. I later knew, I won't mention names, but he is the biggest art collector in Rochester by a long shot. And he's walking towards this thing. And I'm like, be cool, be cool. He's just a person, he may want to buy something. And he comes up, says, how you doing? I really like this piece. I want to buy it for myself. I'm not even going to resell it in my gallery. I just want it for my house. I like it. How much are you asking for it? Well, the answer was right there on the floor, and he knew it. But he's playing a buyer's game. He's a creative person with a commercial head. So he's already one step ahead of the game. right? He's got the business side down. How much are you asking for it? You know, he's probably stepping on a little tile and ignoring it. And Jennifer's like, I'm asking $1,000 for it right now. And I'm looking at her like, be quiet, be quiet. And he assumes what I call the art appreciation position, which is 1 foot at 12 o'clock and one at like 2 o'clock and the hand on the chin. Preferably with a beard, but it works without it too. And he just does this with a long, painful pause. The pause is so long that I don't even have time to do the full pause here today, so I'm running out of time. But he does the long, painful pause, very intentional. This is just a buyer's strategy. And Jennifer can't stand the pain anymore watching this pause. He was going to buy it, he was ready to buy it, he probably would have spent more. And in her nervousness, she says, I'll take 500. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll buy it. So she just cut the price of something that was already too cheap in half. And he made out like a bandit because she was the first one to speak in the negotiation, and the result was epic fail. I'm going to be hearing about that. She didn't know I was going to do the epic fail thing, I'm sure. So the point of all that is I just like telling that humorous story, and it's a little bit of a digression. But the point of it is, it's good for you even as an artist or creative person to understand the human process of selling and commerce and how to create value and how to get the most that you can for your work inside a company or outside. So what does all this come together? What does all this mean to you? What do you take out of this? Well, if there's a lesson in all of this, it's that you can't always be right. And I don't necessarily mean that literally, although it is true literally, like we talked about earlier. You can't always be right. Sometimes you have to give in, even if you are right. But what I'm talking about is, and Carol alluded to this in her introduction to the speech, I'm talking about your brain. I always carry an actual human brain around with me. Do not ask where I get them, no questions. But you don't always have to be right means your right brain. Were all of you, when Carol mentioned earlier, you're familiar with the right brain, left brain concepts? I don't think go into it too deeply. Carol kind of said it. The right brain is the home of most things that are considered to be creative. Imagination, subjective analysis, aesthetic judgment, emotion. So most of the things that comprise a creative person are said to be, we say that we're right brain people, or as I call them, righties. And then the left brain would typically, but not always, be more analytical people, number crunchers, people who like data, who think in a more linear fashion. So the challenge for a creative person in commerce is to deal with the fact that most of us work primarily just through this side of our head. And the right side of our head, so you are here on the guided map, the right side of our brain tends to, once again an exaggeration, tends to see the world like this, right? Colors and shapes and abstracts and things. I know it's making everybody nauseous, that's why I'm not looking at it. But you know what I mean. You don't actually, well, unless you're doing something you shouldn't be, you're not actually seeing this in your life, but you see things in the abstract. Creative, imaginative, your mind is going in these directions. Whereas the left brain person, again, not literally, sees the world this way, in a very linear, factual fashion. I don't know what this formula means. The answer may be dirty or something, so if you do know what it means, I'm sorry, but it's really just an example of the radical difference between right brain and left brain. And there are scientists out there who say that the right brain, left brain notion is a bunch of oversimplified, overly romanticized crap. Frankly, whether it's neuroscientifically accurate or not, I absolutely believe, and I will bet all of you do too, that everybody is absolutely hardwired in one general direction or the other, which is not to say they never cross over, but you are hardwired to be predominantly creative or predominantly not creative. The good news about that is that it's great to be a righty. And I know I'm biased, but it rocks to be a righty. Why? 2 reasons. First of all, it can't be taught. Being creative can't be taught. It's like trying to teach somebody how to be tall. It's built into you. It can't be done. But you can learn other skills. You can learn how to read a spreadsheet. I mean, I don't like doing it, but it can be learned. You can learn how to analyze numbers and how to make business calculations, but you cannot learn how to be creative. So that's the number 1 reason it's great to be a righty. The number 2 reason is that almost everything great in the world starts on the right side. Somebody, by definition, if ideas are born in the right side of the brain, then by definition, ideas and all the great products and things that we have in our lives over the centuries started on somebody's right brain, from Da Vinci through Bell and Edison and Steve Jobs and on. There are very few exceptions to that rule. But, and this is hopefully circling everything back, at some point in the process, the right brain needs the left brain, whether it's yours or somebody else's, to take that idea to a certain level. Some of us can take an idea this far, some of us can take it this far, some of us can only have the idea as creative people. So at some point, we need to engage a little of our left brain and most likely bring in some other seriously left brain people to turn our idea into reality and commercialize it and turn it into something that we can all make money from, have careers, and have the lives that we want. So they not only are compatible, but they really need each other. One really can't be successful without the other. So you've got your right brain, you've got your left brain. Where are you going to go when you leave here? Well, there's two very general possibilities. You could wind up in what I call an intrinsically creative business, and there's many of them back here that you'll be meeting with today, I'm sure. By intrinsically creative business, I mean a company whose process and product is creativity. That would be something like an advertising agency or a web development firm, things like that, where your creative work is the product that you're selling. And the nice thing about working in this environment is that you don't have to have quite as much of that commercial experience, because everyone around you and everything you do is creative energy. There's a lower percentage of people in the company who are not creative. There's probably some accounting people, and depending on the size of the company, there's a few lefties in there, but you're mostly surrounded by other righties. So going back to the interview process, the person who interviews you is more likely to be a creative person who gets you, and you don't have to worry quite as much about bridging that gap as you would if you're going to meet with the HR person at some big corporation. Less pressure on you to become commercial, but you still have to understand that you're selling a product. And there's less of this whole issue of interacting with people of different personalities, the whole, free will and ego and all of that. You're surrounded by it, so you've all kind of got the same mentality and putting out great work. And you might get to work in one of these awesomely cool offices that everybody dreams about working in. Well, the reality is that most of us wind up working in more of a conventional business. They're not always this boring, but only because there are more of them, not because of our talents or skills. There's just way more of these companies than there are companies where you can take a nap in an Airstream trailer. So most of us will be a part of a bigger process. We'll be creative people. I think that guy's a creative. The guy eating the cake is definitely not. This guy might be. The rest of them are like engineers and salespeople and stuff like that, and manufacturing people. So most of us, in all likelihood, will be performing a creative function within a bigger organization. And so it's incumbent on us to bring in that left brain activity as much as we can. And all the lessons that I hopefully you took something away from in compromising and giving up, choosing battles, understanding where your role falls in the greater commercial enterprise, and working within the realm of having to be collaborative with people who may not be creative. So you may wind up in one or both of these worlds, but being able to engage that left brain and work with left brain people will really build your value as an employee and open doors for you to become more creative and do more of what you want as your career grows. So in the final analysis, I put it all together. Do I have time to tell my own defense story? This will hopefully tie it all up in a neat knot, and this is one of my favorite personal stories from my company. I say, do it like Ben did. Ben was the first graphic designer I ever hired. He was my second employee, if you don't count me. I worked by myself for about a year, then I hired an office manager to take orders and things. And then, I kind of limped along doing all the design stuff myself. And then I hired Ben straight out of RIT. He had gone to school internationally. He was ridiculously talented. I knew the second I met him, he had a great personality. He wasn't too egotistical, but he knew his work was great. His portfolio was crazy good. I knew I wanted to have him. Didn't know if I could get him or not, but he wanted to work for a small company and really start from the ground up. because he had aspirations. And this is a long story that I will make as short as possible, but from day one, Ben exhibited all of the positive commercial traits, if you will, of the things that I talked about. He didn't let the creative characteristics get in his way. He had them, but he didn't let them get in his way. He always wanted to learn about the business, and I run a very transparent business. We talk about the numbers all the time. I don't really have secrets. I want people to know what's going on. He wanted to learn about how a business operates. He wanted to know what his role was, how it impacted sales, what he could and couldn't do. He used this creative tool, literally was in a warehouse packing boxes with us, whatever it took. I also happen to know that Ben's personal passion was horror movies. Everyone's got to have a passion. So Ben loves horror movies. And in his spare time, he told me when he started working for me, he designed and made horror movie themed t-shirts, which he sold on a website that he built himself, and he worked until like 3 o'clock in the morning every night when he left work, and he put in a good day's work with us, so it wasn't like I resented it. I wish he got more sleep, but he worked until like 3 o'clock in the morning, designing t-shirts, sent them to a silk screener, working on his website, and he was building a following. I mean, he had like big-time rock stars wearing his shirts on stage. 2 days ago, actually, he sent me a picture of Quentin Tarantino wearing one of his shirts, and that's pretty cool. If you're, that's about as good as you can get in the horror business. And he would bring in his envelopes of t-shirts every day and leave them in the mail bin to be picked up by the mailman to get shipped out to his customers, with my blessings. I had no problem with it. And I noticed over time that the pile was getting bigger and bigger. There were more t-shirts every week or so. And not being stupid, I knew where this story was going to end. He was getting successful. He was selling more and more shirts. And sooner or later, he was going to do this for a living. It was very clear. Now, I don't believe you can stop somebody from pursuing their dream, and I don't believe you can keep an employee forever. Now, I may be much better and more enlightened than the average employer, but I'm not alone. People realize that people move on. No one stays in a career forever. I was hoping he'd stay for a long time, but I knew eventually the pile of t-shirts was going to get to him. And sure enough, after about 5 years, he walked in my office. And by the way, we were very open about it. I helped him find a lawyer. I taught him how to set up a business entity, helped him make connections so that he could learn how to get actually set up as a professional business. And again, because I'm a great boss, I did that. And he walked in my office one day and he had this look on his face, and we didn't even have to have the conversation. I was like, it's time, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm doing well enough that I feel like I can make it. Not a lot of money, but enough that I can do this out of my garage and pay the bills. And I was like, I think that's great. I gave myself the chance to be an entrepreneur. Why would I not give it to somebody else? So Ben left, and by the way, he came back often to help us when we needed help. So this comes back to that whole be a utility player, be a team player. He was so thankful for the opportunity to grow up in a business that he was always available if something went wrong with a computer or some file that he worked on needed help. He came right back in. And he built this business. This is a shameless plug for his business, because he deserves it, called Fright Rags. The website, by the way, I'm not an investor. I have, in my disclosure, I have no financial interest in this company, but it's fright-rags.com. If you like horror, buy one of Ben's shirts. And that demonstrates this whole commercial, creative life cycle coming full circle. Ben took his creative work, took the desire and ability to absorb commercial knowledge and add commerce to his creative toolbox to build value for himself first in my company, and then enough of a portfolio of skills to start his own company. And now he is successfully running his own company in an actual office and warehouse with employees and making a living doing it. And that is the best possible world. If you look at the theme of this story of blending commerce and creativity, he's doing what he wants with his life. And so Ben discovered that commerce and creativity are not enemies, they're additive. It's a formula. Creativity plus commerce is how you build a formula for a career that you can guide and direct so that in the end, you can do more of the things you love. So I hope you'll take some of that to heart, and that you'll be willing to open your mind to things that may be outside your area of specialty right now, and recognize that the more you're willing to learn, the more you're willing to bring to the table commercially, as you move on in your career, the more you will be able to have the career and do the creative things that you really want. I appreciate your listening to me today, and I hope you all have outstanding careers. I know you will. Thanks for sitting and listening.